Whispers of the Aegean. Chapter 1. The Dreaming Sea. The sea was quiet that evening, as though the Aegean itself had decided to rest. Waves lapped gently against the worn stones of the shoreline, their rhythm neither hurried nor slow, but steady like the breathing of a giant fallen into slumber. The last light of day stretched thin across the horizon, where the sun descended like a god weary from his golden journey. Soon the moon would take her place, carrying her silver torch through the sky. On a small hill above the bay, beneath the crooked shade of an ancient olive tree, a boy sat alone. His name was Lysander, though in this telling names matter less than feelings, and feelings matter less than the dream that was waiting for him. He had wandered here after dusk, seeking quiet, the kind of quiet that the marketplace could not give, nor the crowded hearth of his family's home. The tree had grown here for longer than any villager remembered. Its roots clutched at the stones like fingers holding on to the earth itself, and its leaves whispered whenever the wind passed through. Lysander leaned back against its trunk. He listened to the wind in the branches, the soft calls of night birds, and the gentle murmur of the sea. These sounds blended together like the notes of a lyre plucked by unseen hands. He was tired, though not in the way of heavy limbs or aching muscles. It was the kind of tiredness that comes from carrying too many thoughts, dreams of the future, questions about the gods, and stories half remembered from the mouths of traveling poets. His eyelids grew heavy, but he fought the pull of sleep, for the stars had not yet fully awakened. "Just a little longer," he whispered, as though to himself, as though to the olive tree that had become his companion. The olive tree did not answer, yet in its silence, Lysander felt a kind of listening. He rested his head against its rough bark, and soon the world of stone and sea melted away, into the dream. When Lysander opened his eyes again, the sea was no longer the same. The waves shimmered, not with reflected sunlight, but with their own inner glow. Each crest carried threads of silver, as though Selene herself had dipped her fingers into the tide. The horizon stretched endlessly, but there was no fear in its vastness. Instead, the sea invited him, like a soft lullaby made visible. The olive tree still stood beside him, but taller, grander, as though it had remembered its ancient youth, when trees could walk and whisper to gods without shame. Its branches swayed without wind, its leaves shimmering like starlight. A voice rose from the water. It was not loud, but deep, as though the sea itself had chosen to speak. "Welcome, dreamer." Lysander's heart stirred, but not with fear. The voice was calm, timeless, wrapping around him like warm wool on a cold night. He stepped closer to the shore, and the sand beneath his feet was cool, though he did not remember standing up. "Where am I?" he asked. His own voice felt small compared to the sea, yet the waves seemed to bend closer, listening carefully as though his words were precious. "You are at the threshold," the sea answered, "between waking and dreaming, where stories breathe. Do you wish to walk among them?" Lysander thought of his village, of the poets who came to tell tales of gods and heroes. He thought of the endless questions that crowded his mind. What lay beyond the world he knew? Did the gods still walk among mortals? Could a boy like him ever touch a fragment of eternity? "I wish it," he said. His voice trembled, not from doubt, but from awe. The sea sighed, a sound both vast and gentle, and from its foam rose a path of light. It stretched out like a bridge across the waves, gleaming as though woven from moonbeams. "Then walk," child of Earth. The myths await you. The first step. Lysander placed his bare foot upon the shining path. It was neither wet nor dry, neither solid nor soft. It felt like standing on music, on the hum of a song that had always been there, waiting. He took another step, and another, until the shore was far behind. Around him, the sea glittered. Shapes moved beneath the waves, shadows of dolphins, perhaps, or spirits older than dolphins. The water was alive with whispers. He could not understand the words, yet they comforted him, as though the sea was singing to itself and letting him overhear. Above, the stars bloomed like flowers. One by one they appeared, filling the sky not with cold light, but with warmth. It seemed each star was a lantern hung by unseen hands, illuminating his path. He walked until he came to the end of the shining bridge. There, waiting on the horizon, was a garden unlike any he had seen. The Garden of Twilight. The garden rose from the sea itself, floating as though rooted in nothing but air and silence. Its trees were tall, their trunks dark as midnight, their leaves glowing faintly as if made from fragments of starlight. Flowers opened lazily in the dim air, their petals shaped like constellations. Between the trees, small lanterns floated on their own, bobbing gently as though carried by invisible currents. Lysander stepped into the garden, and at once the air changed. It was neither warm nor cool, but perfectly balanced, a place where breath came easily and the heart beat slowly. His footsteps made no sound, yet the ground seemed aware of him, as though each step was being noted with care. At the center of the garden stood a woman draped in shadows. Her form was tall, her hair dark as the deepest night, yet her eyes shone brighter than any star, and her presence carried the calm of eternity. Lysander knew without needing to be told, this was Nyx, the goddess of night. She regarded him with a gaze that was neither stern nor kind, but infinite. "A dreamer walks my garden," she said, her voice soft yet immense, as though it contained all the lullabies ever sung. "What do you seek, child?" Lysander bowed, though he did not know if one bowed to gods in dreams. "Stories," he said. "I seek to know the myths, not the battles, not the thunder. Just the truth hidden in them, the quiet truths." Nyx's expression did not change, but the air seemed to darken as if the stars themselves leaned closer. "Then you will have them," she whispered. "But remember, every story is a sea. Some are calm, some are storms. Do you trust yourself to sail them?" Lysander felt the question settle deep within him. He thought of his village, his restless heart, the longing that had brought him here, and then he nodded. "Yes, I trust." Nyx extended her hand. In her palm appeared a small flame, not bright, but steady, a flame the color of twilight, neither day nor night. She held it out to him. "Take this. It is not fire, but memory. Wherever you walk, it will light the way." He reached forward, and the flame settled into his chest, warm but not burning. For a moment, he thought he heard countless voices sigh, like winds across mountains, like waves across time. The goddess inclined her head, her gaze already turning elsewhere, to horizons he could not see. "Go, child of Earth, the myths are waiting." And with that, the garden shifted, its starlit paths winding into new directions. The dream had only just begun. Chapter 2. The Garden of Nyx. The garden did not stand still. Its pathways, lined with starlight, shifted gently beneath Lysander's steps, never closing, never trapping, but always guiding. Each turn of the path seemed to open upon another wonder. A fountain that poured silver water instead of clear, a grove of flowers that opened only when he breathed near, lanterns that swayed as if nodding to his presence. But none of these were frightening. Everything in the garden of Nyx seemed designed not to dazzle, but to soothe. The air carried the faintest scent of night-blooming jasmine, and when he inhaled, it was as though he was breathing calm itself. The goddess of night moved ahead of him, and her steps were noiseless, as though she walked not on earth, but on the fabric of dreams. Her robes flowed like an endless sky, blending with shadow and starlight, and her hair shimmered with flecks of silver. Lysander followed, carrying within him the strange twilight flame she had placed in his chest. It pulsed gently, like a small heart within a heart. The first story, Nyx led him to a circle of stones at the heart of the garden. Each stone was tall, smoothed by centuries, and carved with symbols that glowed faintly. In their center burned a quiet fire, not red, not gold, but the color of deep violet dusk. "Sit," Nyx said, though her lips hardly moved. Her voice did not echo, for the garden itself seemed to carry her words. Lysander obeyed. The stone beneath him was cool but not cold, and it seemed to welcome his weight, as though it had been waiting for someone to rest upon it. The goddess lifted one hand. At her gesture, the fire in the circle rose higher, curling into shapes, into visions. "Every night," she said, "the world tells its stories to me. I gather them, I carry them, and when the dawn comes I lay them gently in the sea, where they dissolve like foam. But some stories return, again and again, for they are not bound to one age nor to one teller. Would you like to hear the first of them?" "Yes," Lysander whispered. His own voice seemed small before the hush of the garden, but it was enough. Nyx lowered her gaze, and the violet fire unfolded into the image of a vast sky. In its center, a figure appeared, bright as flame, but graceful as flowing water. "This is how it began," she said softly, "when Gaia, the earth, still slept, and chaos stretched unbroken. From that emptiness came the first breaths of night, and from night, the first whispers of light. The fire shifted. Lysander saw stars trembling into existence, timid at first, then bold. A sun rose in the vision, a golden sphere that bathed all things in warmth. A child of night and darkness was born, Erebus, the shadow between things. But from me also came Ether, the shining air, and Hemera, the gentle day. Night is not only silence, dreamer. Night is the mother of beginnings." Her voice flowed like water on stone. The flames showed a dance of light and shadow, of day rising from night and returning to it. No battle, no clash, only rhythm, the pulse of existence itself. Lysander watched, wide-eyed, his heart swelling with a calm he had never known. The lesson of balance. "Mortals often fear the night," Nyx said. Her eyes glimmered like twin stars. "They fear what they cannot see, what hides beyond their fires. Yet without night, there is no dawn. Without rest, no strength. Without silence, no song. Do you understand?" "I think so," Lysander murmured. "Night is not the enemy. It's the breath between." A faint smile touched her lips. "Yes, the breath between." She extended her hand once more. The violet fire coiled into the shape of a bird, small, delicate, glowing faintly. It fluttered in the air before Lysander, then landed upon his shoulder. Its warmth seeped into him, as gentle as moonlight. "Take this memory," Nyx said. "When you walk in darkness, remember that it is not emptiness, but shelter." Lysander nodded, too moved to speak. The second story. The goddess turned, and the garden seemed to ripple with her movement. New paths opened, and the circle of stones dissolved into starlight. They walked beneath towering trees whose leaves glowed faintly silver. Somewhere in the distance, unseen waters murmured, their sound like lullabies. Nyx spoke again, though her words were slower now, as though drawing from a deeper well. "There is another tale I will give you before you go on. A gentler tale, though mortals often forget it." She raised her hand, and again shadows took shape, this time forming a woman seated at the edge of the sea. Her eyes were sad, but her hands shaped waves as though they were clay. "This is Metis," Nyx whispered. "Wisdom itself. She was the companion of Zeus, long before his thunder grew proud. She counseled him, steadied him, and carried a calm that even gods envied. But when prophecy spoke that her child would surpass him, he swallowed her whole." The flames flickered, and Lysander gasped. But Nyx's voice never hardened. It remained steady, quiet. "Do not think of this as cruelty," she said. "Think of it as change." Within Zeus, Metis lived still, her wisdom whispering in every decision he made. From her came Athena, born not in pain but in light, from a head that carried wisdom instead of fear. The vision shifted, and Lysander saw Athena rising, her armor gleaming not with harshness, but with calm radiance. Her gaze was sharp, yet her hand rested gently upon the earth. "Wisdom does not vanish," Nyx said. "Even when hidden, even when buried, it waits. In every silence, it waits." The fire died back into its gentle violet glow. A gift of night, Nyx turned toward Lysander, and for the first time her expression softened fully. Her presence no longer felt distant as the stars, but near, like a mother watching a child fall into peaceful sleep. "You seek stories," she said. "But more than stories, you seek peace." "Yes," Lysander whispered. "I think I do." She reached into the folds of her robe and drew forth a small vial, sealed with a stopper of obsidian. Inside it swirled not liquid, but pure shadow, soft and shimmering. "This is a draught of night," she told him. "Not to drink, but to carry. Wherever you feel unrest, uncork it, and the hush of my garden will return." Lysander accepted it with trembling hands. The vial was cool, and as he held it, the shadows within seemed to quiet his own heartbeat. "Thank you," he said, voice barely above a breath. Nyx inclined her head, her starlit hair swaying like silk. "You have listened well," she said. "Now another waits to guide you further. You will find him where the fireflies gather. He will not appear as mortals know him, but he will lead you along the next road." The garden shimmered once more. Paths folded and unfolded, like pages of a book. Lysander felt the twilight flame within his chest pulse warmly, as if agreeing, and so he bowed once more to the goddess of night. "Farewell, Lady Nyx." Her eyes lingered on him, timeless and vast. "Farewell, dreamer. May the myths treat you gently." And then she was gone, dissolving into starlight, leaving only the hush of the garden behind. Chapter 3. Hermes by the Fireflies. The garden of Nyx faded behind Lysander like the last note of a lullaby. Where once the paths had been solemn and starlit, now the air grew warmer, softer, touched with a glow that seemed to come not from the moon or stars, but from countless tiny sparks hovering in the air. At first, Lysander thought they were embers, drifting from some unseen hearth. But no heat clung to them, no smoke. They were fireflies, thousands of them, moving in gentle swirls, their light rising and falling in a rhythm that felt alive. He stepped carefully, and the twilight flame within his chest answered the glow, pulsing in harmony. The air was alive with quiet laughter, not cruel, not loud, but the playful murmur of a child hiding behind a tree, waiting to be found. "Ah," a voice said, light as a breeze. "So the dreamer comes at last." Lysander turned. A figure sat upon a fallen log, half hidden by the drifting fireflies. He was young, or perhaps ageless, with hair the color of sunlit bronze, and eyes that gleamed like the surface of a calm river. At his side rested a staff entwined with two gentle snakes, though even they seemed less serpents than streams of light, twining playfully about the wood. The boy's smile curved easily, as though it had been waiting forever. "I know you," Lysander whispered, though he had never seen him before. "Of course you do," the figure replied, tilting his head. "Everyone knows me, even if they forget. I walk the roads between towns, between dreams, between the words one speaks and the words one swallows. I am Hermes, the lantern of fireflies." Hermes lifted his hand, and the fireflies gathered in a swirl. They clustered together, forming a small lantern of living light that hovered above his palm. "Nyx has given you shadows," Hermes said. "But shadows alone can make a path heavy. You'll need laughter, too, the kind that makes the heart lighter than footsteps. Otherwise, dreams turn too solemn, and sleep grows restless." He tossed the lantern gently into the air. It floated before Lysander, bobbing softly. "Take it," Hermes said. "Not for light. You already carry that. Take it for play." Lysander reached out. The lantern of fireflies drifted into his hands. It was weightless, yet it filled him with warmth, as though he were holding a summer evening in a village square, with children laughing and sandals tapping on stone. "Thank you," he murmured. Hermes hopped down from the log in one fluid movement. "Good. Now walk with me." A trickster's calm. The path that opened now was different from Nyx's solemn garden. Here the trees leaned close, their branches dangling low, and each branch hosted fireflies that blinked in playful patterns. Some darted ahead, like guides. Others lingered behind, as though reluctant to let go. Hermes walked beside Lysander, swinging his staff like a shepherd guiding invisible sheep. "Tell me, dreamer," Hermes said, "why do mortals love stories?" Lysander thought carefully. To remember, to understand, he hesitated. Maybe to feel less small? Hermes chuckled. "All true, but I'll tell you a secret. Mortals love stories because stories bend the rules. A farmer cannot fly, but in a story he might sprout wings. A child cannot outwit a god, but in a tale he might trick even Zeus. Rules are heavy. Stories are light." He skipped ahead, twirling his staff. The snakes wound around it in playful loops. "I should know," Hermes added, flashing a grin. "I've been breaking rules since the dawn." Lysander couldn't help but smile. The weight of awe that had pressed upon him in Nyx's garden eased in Hermes's presence. Here was a god who was not distant as the stars, but near, laughing as though the world were his playground. The tale of the lyre. Hermes stopped beside a pond where fireflies hovered low, their lights mirrored in the still water. "Here," he said, crouching down. "Let me tell you a story. Not one of thunder or war. No, too noisy for sleep. A softer one." He tapped his staff on the ground, and ripples spread across the pond. Images shimmered in the water, forming a vision. "When I was but a child, so small the cradle still held me, I grew restless." Hermes winked. "Restless, yes, that's the word. I slipped away from my mother's arms quick as a breeze. and I found a herd of white cows that belonged to Apollo. The image in the pond showed a baby swaddled in cloths, wriggling free, his eyes mischievous. Then the same child toddling after a group of shining cattle. "I stole them, of course," Hermes said cheerfully. "Who wouldn't? But I was clever. I made them walk backward, so their tracks fooled any who followed." Lysander laughed aloud, the sound surprising even himself. Hermes grinned wider. But the real trick came after. From a turtle shell, some strings, and my restless hands, I built a lyre. Its music was soft, gentle, like this. He tapped the pond again, and the air filled with the sound of strings plucked in golden rhythm. It was not thunderous music, nor triumphant. It was delicate, soothing, like the hush of waves on a summer night. When Apollo came to claim his cattle, he heard the lyre. His anger melted. He traded his herd for the music, and we became friends. That is how it is with stories, you see. They do not always conquer with strength. Sometimes they soothe with sound. The music lingered in the air. Lysander closed his eyes, letting the notes wash over him. It was as if the world itself swayed in rhythm, cradling him. A gift of play. When the music faded, Hermes touched Lysander's shoulder. "Take this lesson with you. The world is not only shadow and solemn truths. There's laughter, too, trickery, mischief, joy. Without them, stories grow heavy, and hearts forget how to fly." From his satchel, Hermes drew a small charm. A coin, simple bronze, but etched with the image of wings. He placed it into Lysander's hand. "Flip it whenever you need lightness," Hermes said. "It will remind you that no matter how heavy the world feels, play is always waiting." Lysander closed his fingers around the coin. Warmth spread through him, mingling with the twilight flame and the lantern of fireflies. He felt steadier, balanced. Hermes stretched, yawning as though even gods could grow drowsy. "Now then, my work here is done. Another waits for you, dreamer. You will find him where the golden strings echo. He'll sing to you of harmony." "Another god?" Lysander asked. Hermes's smile grew sly. Perhaps only a song. You'll see." The fireflies swirled around Hermes, their glow thickening, until he was nothing but laughter in the air. Lysander was alone again, though not truly alone. The lantern hovered by his side. The coin rested in his palm, and the path ahead glowed faintly, as though strung with unseen music. Chapter 4. Echoes of Apollo's Lyre. The path Hermes left behind shimmered faintly, glowing as though strung with threads of light. Lysander followed it, his steps quiet, the firefly lantern hovering by his side, the bronze coin of Hermes safe in his hand. The air had changed again, no longer filled with playful whispers, but hushed, reverent, waiting. The twilight flame in his chest pulsed slowly, like the beat of a drum guiding him forward. He walked until the fireflies thinned, their glow replaced by another brightness. At first, he thought it was dawn, but when he looked upward, he saw the stars still shining in the dark, eternal sky. The glow came instead from a wide clearing, where a single figure sat upon a stone. His hands rested upon a lyre, golden and shining, and every note he plucked spread into the air like ripples in a pool. The figure was radiant, though not blinding. His hair shimmered with strands of sunlight, his robes woven with threads that looked like morning mist. Around him the grass grew greener, the flowers opened wider, and even the air seemed warmer, as though all things leaned closer just to listen. Lysander did not need to ask who this was. The music itself told him. It was Apollo, the music of harmony. Apollo lifted his gaze, and his eyes, bright as the sun yet gentle as dawn, fell upon Lysander. He smiled faintly. "Welcome, dreamer," he said. His voice was neither loud nor stern. It flowed like a melody in itself, soft but unshakable. "You have walked through night and play. Now you come to harmony." He strummed his lyre, and the sound drifted through the clearing. Lysander felt the music in his bones, in his very breath. It was not music that stirred the heart to battle, nor music that brought tears. It was music that balanced, that quieted. "Sit," Apollo said, nodding to the grass before him. Lysander obeyed. The grass bent gently beneath him, fragrant with the scent of wild thyme and lavender. The lantern of fireflies hovered above, its glow mingling with the golden shimmer of Apollo's lyre. For a time, Apollo played without words. Notes rose and fell like waves. Birds that had been silent in the branches began to sing, their voices twining with the strings. Even the stars seemed to pulse in rhythm, their light flickering like gentle drums. At last, Apollo spoke. "Mortals think the lyre is an instrument of triumph," he said. "They tell stories of how its sound softened anger, or how it claimed victory over rival songs. But that is not its truest gift. The lyre is balance. Its strings are many, yet they speak together as one. Its music is not war, but accord." He plucked another note, and Lysander felt his own heartbeat settle into rhythm with it. The tale of contest. Apollo's fingers moved swiftly across the strings, and the fire above the lyre shimmered into vision. "There was a day," Apollo said softly, "when I was challenged. A mortal, Marsyas, found a flute abandoned by a goddess. He played it with skill, and the people loved him. But pride crept into his song, and he called for contest against me. The vision formed. A satyr, half man, half goat, blowing into a flute with fierce skill. His music echoed through valleys, bold and wild. I accepted, Apollo continued, but I knew the truth. Music is not for victory. Music is for harmony. The vision showed Apollo's lyre and Marsyas's flute clashing. At first, the flute soared, defiant and strong, but soon it grew strained, each note heavier, more desperate. The lyre, however, flowed endlessly, weaving sound upon sound like sunlight through leaves. Music born of pride falters, Apollo said. Music born of balance endures. The image faded, leaving only the warm glow of the clearing. The lesson of accord. Apollo lowered his lyre, resting it against his knee. His eyes softened as he looked upon Lysander. You have been given the shadows of night and the play of trickery. Now you must carry the song of accord. Life is not only rest or laughter. It is the harmony between them. He leaned forward and touched the strings once more, this time drawing out a single note. It lingered, shimmering in the air. Slowly, the note condensed, forming into a string of golden thread. Apollo placed it into Lysander's hands. Carry this, he said. It is not a string of power, but of balance. Whenever your heart wavers, pluck it, and remember that all things, day and night, laughter and silence, belong in the same song. Lysander held the golden string, his heart steady, his breath slow. He felt as though his very soul had been tuned, set into rhythm with something far older than himself. Thank you, he whispered. Apollo smiled faintly, and his music rose again, filling the clearing. Go now, dreamer. Others wait for you. Follow the sound of the sea. There you will find the gentle birth of love. As the words faded, the fireflies drifted forward, guiding Lysander once more. The lyre's notes lingered behind, echoing like the memory of sunlight on still water. Lysander stood, his steps light, his heart steady. With the flame of Nyx, the coin of Hermes, and the golden string of Apollo, he felt prepared for whatever story would come next. The path shimmered ahead, carrying the faint scent of salt and foam. The sea was waiting. Chapter 5. Aphrodite's Seashell. The path of golden harmony faded into the hush of waves. Lysander walked until the earth beneath his feet gave way to sand, pale and cool. The sea stretched before him, vast and calm, its surface silvered by moonlight. Each wave rolled gently toward the shore, as though the sea itself breathed in a slow rhythm meant to soothe. The firefly lantern drifted beside him, casting a warm halo that mingled with the sea's reflection. The golden string of Apollo pulsed faintly in his hand, as though in answer to the tide. For a moment, Lysander simply stood and listened. The waves did not roar or crash here. They sighed, their rhythm steady, like a lullaby older than the world. And then he saw it, a seashell resting upon the sand. It was larger than any shell he had ever known, spiraled and gleaming with soft colors, rose, pearl, gold. As he approached, he felt not awe, not fear, but a deep tenderness, like the warmth of a familiar embrace. The seashell stirred. From within its glow rose a figure, radiant yet gentle, draped in flowing garments that shimmered like foam. Her hair fell like waves, her eyes deep as the horizon at dusk. Around her ankles, the water curled lovingly, as though reluctant to let her go. Lysander knew her without question. It was Aphrodite, the birth of calm. The goddess smiled, not with pride, but with a quietness that filled the air around her. When she spoke, her voice was as soft as water against skin. "Do not be afraid, child," she said. "Love does not come to frighten. It comes to soften." Lysander bowed his head, though her presence did not demand it. "Lady Aphrodite," he whispered. She lifted a hand, and the seashell glowed brighter. Images shimmered upon its surface. The vast sea, the endless sky, the first light touching foam. "They tell many tales of my birth," Aphrodite said. "Some painted in beauty, others in violence. But the sea remembers only gentleness. It was not storm, but stillness that bore me. The foam rose like silk, the light kissed the horizon, and I was carried on calm waters. Love is not always fire. Sometimes it is tide." Her eyes lingered on Lysander, warm and endless. And tide does not force. It comes, it goes, it returns. Love is patient. The waves seemed to sigh in agreement, washing closer to his feet. The story of the fisherman. Aphrodite touched the seashell again, and another vision rose upon its surface. This time it was of a small boat upon the sea, a lone fisherman casting his net. His hands were rough, his shoulders tired. The net came back empty again and again, yet he continued, night after night. "Mortals often think love belongs only to great kings and heroes," Aphrodite murmured. "But love visits the humble too. This man fished not for riches, but for his village, for his family. His love was not passion nor desire, but quiet devotion." The vision shifted. One night, the fisherman lifted his net and found within it not fish, but a single pearl glowing faintly. He held it to his heart, and though it brought no wealth, he carried it always, a gift from the sea. "His love was answered," Aphrodite said. "Not with gold, not with glory, but with a sign that devotion itself is seen. Do you understand, dreamer?" "Yes," Lysander whispered. "Love is not always flame. Sometimes it is tide. Sometimes it is patience." Aphrodite smiled. "And sometimes it is the small pearl in an empty net." The seashell's gift. The goddess lifted her seashell with both hands and held it out to Lysander. "Take this," she said. "It carries not desire, but gentleness. When hearts around you grow restless, press it to your ear, and you will hear the tide. Its sound will remind you that love does not force. It waits. It returns." Lysander reached out. The seashell settled into his palms, light yet steady. When he lifted it to his ear, he heard not only the sea, but whispers, soft voices of kindness, laughter, quiet promises. It filled him with warmth that spread into his chest, mingling with the flame of Nyx, the coin of Hermes, the string of Apollo. "Thank you," he said. Aphrodite's smile deepened, though her eyes seemed far away, as though watching countless hearts across the world. "Go on, dreamer," she said softly. "Others wait. Walk inland where the paths twist. You will find shadows there, but do not fear. Not all shadows hide teeth." She stepped back into the sea, her form dissolving into foam. The waves kissed the shore one last time, then withdrew. The seashell in Lysander's hands glowed faintly, pulsing like a heart. The path inland shimmered before him, winding into the dark. Lysander took a breath, steady and calm, and stepped forward. If you're still awake, just relax your body and let your mind go blank. Now, on with the story. Chapter 6. The Labyrinth of Quiet Shadows. The path from the sea wound inland where the air grew still. Lysander walked with the seashell of Aphrodite pressed close to his chest. Its warmth lingered, reminding him that love was patient, that calm could be carried like a flame. The firefly lantern floated beside him, and in his other hand, the golden string of Apollo glimmered faintly. Soon, the sand gave way to stone. The ground grew harder, and the moonlight dimmed as tall walls rose around him. They were not built of rough blocks, but of smooth, pale stone, polished until they gleamed faintly even in shadow. The walls stretched upward, higher than trees, and the paths between them wound endlessly, folding back upon themselves. A labyrinth, but not like the tales of Minos and the beast. Here, the air carried no growl, no threat. Instead, it was filled with silence so deep it hummed, like the pause between notes in a song. Lysander placed one hand against the wall. It was cool, but it pulsed faintly, as if alive. He stepped forward, and the labyrinth welcomed him with quiet. Shadows that whisper. At first, the paths seemed confusing. Each turn led to another. Each corridor mirrored the last. But Lysander did not feel trapped. The labyrinth moved not as a cage, but as a companion, reshaping itself to match his steps. Shadows stretched across the walls, not from torches, but from shapes he could not see. Yet these shadows were not frightening. They shifted slowly, like dancers swaying to a silent rhythm. When Lysander paused, one shadow detached itself from the wall. It was shaped like a man, tall and calm, though its edges blurred like smoke. The shadow lifted a hand and placed it upon its chest, bowing slightly. "You seek?" the shadow whispered, its voice as soft as breath. "I seek stories," Lysander said, though the words felt small here in this hush. "And peace." The shadow tilted its head. "Then walk. We will show you what is remembered." The story of the labyrinth. As Lysander walked deeper, the shadows gathered along the walls, forming scenes. They told not the tale of Theseus and the Minotaur as he had heard in the village, but something gentler. He saw a king, weary, building walls not from pride, but from longing for order. He saw craftsmen shaping stones not as prisons, but as patterns, each corridor echoing the pathways of thought itself. "The labyrinth is not a trap," the shadows whispered. "It is the mind, wandering. Each turn is a question, each path a reflection. When mortals enter, they do not fight monsters, they face themselves." Lysander touched the wall again. This time he felt his own thoughts ripple outward, as though the labyrinth listened. The questions he carried, the gods, the world, his place in it, seemed to echo through the corridors. The shadows leaned closer. "Do you fear what you will find?" Lysander shook his head slowly. Not fear, only wonder. And at that, the shadows seemed to bow, the still center. At last, after what felt like both moments and hours, Lysander came to the center. It was a wide circle of stone, open to the night sky. In the middle stood no beast, no throne, only a pool of water, so still it reflected the stars perfectly. The labyrinth had led him not to danger, but to calm. Lysander knelt beside the pool. When he gazed into it, he did not see only his own face. He saw fragments of the gifts he carried: Nyx's flame, Hermes' coin, Apollo's string, Aphrodite's shell. Each glowed faintly within the reflection, resting within his heart. The shadows gathered at the edges of the circle, silent, waiting. Lysander dipped his fingers into the pool. The water was cool, soothing. Ripples spread outward, distorting the stars, but when they settled, the reflection returned clearer than before. And he understood. The labyrinth had no monster, because the true challenge was silence itself. To sit with quiet, to see oneself without fear. That was its lesson. The gift of shadows. When Lysander rose, the shadows stepped forward as one. They reached out their hands, and from their palms came a token, a small stone, smooth and dark, yet faintly glowing from within. "Carry this," they whispered. "It holds the quiet of the labyrinth. When the world grows loud, hold it, and silence will return." Lysander accepted it with reverence. The stone pulsed faintly in his hand, steady as breath. The shadows bowed once more, and then they faded into the walls, leaving only moonlight. The labyrinth's corridors opened before him, no longer twisting, no longer shifting. A straight path led outward, toward the silver glow of the sky. Lysander stepped forward, carrying silence within him, and soon the labyrinth was behind him. The path ahead. The night stretched wide and calm. Above, the stars wheeled slowly, and the moon hung bright. Lysander felt the gifts he had gathered. The twilight flame of Nyx, the firefly lantern and coin of Hermes, the golden string of Apollo, the seashell of Aphrodite, each pulsed within him like a constellation, forming a map of his journey. Ahead, the air grew brighter, tinged with silver light, and in that glow he felt a presence waiting, vast yet gentle, the chariot of the moon. Chapter 7. Selene's Silver Chariot. The night widened as Lysander stepped beyond the labyrinth. Ahead, the horizon shimmered, not with fire nor with dawn, but with a silver glow that bathed the land in dreamlight. The air felt lighter here, almost weightless, and the silence of the labyrinth gave way to a soft hum, like the low music of strings carried on the wind. Lysander paused. His heart beat gently, steady as the gifts he carried within. And then he saw her. From the horizon rose a radiant chariot, drawn by pale horses whose manes flowed like moonbeams. Their hooves did not strike the earth, but glided across the air, leaving trails of silver dust. Upon the chariot stood a figure draped in robes of pure light, her face serene, her crown a crescent. It was Selene, the moon, the arrival of the goddess. The chariot slowed until it hovered above the ground. Selene stepped down, her bare feet touching the earth without sound. Around her, the air shimmered like water, and every leaf, every stone seemed softened by her glow. "Dreamer," she said, her voice calm and luminous, "you have walked far, and you carry many gifts. But will you walk with me above the sleeping world?" Lysander bowed his head. "Lady Selene, I would follow wherever you lead." Her smile was like the curve of the moon itself. She extended a hand, cool as night, and helped him into her chariot. The firefly lantern floated closer, eager. Even the seashell of Aphrodite glowed more brightly, as though the tide itself leaned toward the moon. The silver ride. The horses leapt, and the chariot soared. At once, the ground fell away, and the world spread out below them in hushed wonder. Villages lay quiet, fires glowing faintly in hearths. Rivers gleamed like ribbons, forests dark and still. Above, the sky stretched deeper, filled with stars that winked like watchful eyes. The moon itself hung larger now, radiant and whole, yet not blinding. Its light softened everything it touched. Lysander held the edge of the chariot, his breath caught not in fear, but awe. The air brushed his face, cool and gentle, carrying the faintest scent of night-blooming flowers. Selene guided the reins with ease, her gaze fixed on the path of stars. "Mortals see only a pale circle when they look at me," she said softly. "But I am more than a light. I am the keeper of stillness, the one who watches when all else sleeps." Her words fell like silver drops into Lysander's mind. The story of Endymion. As the chariot drifted higher, Selene's voice grew softer, and a story unfolded in the air itself. "I once loved a mortal shepherd," she said. "His name was Endymion. His beauty was not that of kings, but of peace. His heart was quiet, his soul serene. Each night, as he slept upon the hills, I descended to watch him. I touched his brow with light, and in dreams he knew me." The silver dust of the horses swirled, shaping visions. A shepherd lying upon soft grass, the moonlight kissing his face, a goddess watching with tender eyes. "But I knew his life would fade," Selene whispered. "So I gave him a gift, not immortality of flesh, but endless sleep. He slumbers still, untouched by time, dreaming beneath my gaze. In his rest there is no pain, no age, only peace." Her voice lingered, filled not with sorrow but with gentle devotion. Lysander felt his chest ache. That is love too, isn't it? Not fire, not tide, but watching, guarding, letting someone rest. Selene turned her silver eyes to him. "Yes, dreamer. Love wears many faces. Sometimes it is wakefulness for the sake of another's sleep." The moon's gift. As the chariot glided past the highest arc of the night sky, Selene reached into her robes. She drew forth a fragment of light, small, glowing, and curved like a crescent. "Take this, Lysander," she said. "It is a shard of my moon. When shadows grow heavy and dreams falter, this will remind you that stillness has its own strength. It will bring rest when rest is needed." Lysander accepted the shard with trembling hands. The light did not burn but soothed, sinking into his palms like cool water. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, and for a moment he felt weightless, as though his soul itself had wings. "Thank you," he whispered. Selene's smile softened. "Carry it well, for ahead lies not only dreams but choices, and even choices must rest beneath the moonlight." Descent. The chariot slowed, circling downward. The earth rose again, forests and hills returning to meet him. Selene guided the horses gently to the ground, their hooves leaving no mark. When the chariot touched the earth, she placed a hand upon Lysander's shoulder. "Your path continues, dreamer. But remember, no matter where you walk, my light will follow." He stepped down onto the grass, clutching the crescent shard close. The chariot glowed brighter, and then it rose once more, drawn upward into the stars. Selene looked back only once, her eyes filled with quiet blessing, before she vanished into the silver road of night. Lysander stood still, breathing deeply. Around him, the land shimmered with pale light, and in the distance he felt another presence stirring. Something vast, ancient, echoing like the earth itself. The journey was not yet done. Chapter 8. The Voice of Gaia. The land was quiet after Selene's chariot faded into the stars. Lysander walked slowly, guided by the glow of the crescent shard in his hand. He felt the silence of the labyrinth, the warmth of Aphrodite's shell, the strength of Apollo's golden string, the cleverness of Hermes's lantern, and the twilight flame of Nyx all resting within him, like pieces of a constellation. The path before him led into a meadow, wide and still. Grass rippled like an ocean under the night, and the stars shone clearly above. Yet it was not the sky that called to him now, but the ground itself. The earth hummed beneath his feet. A low vibration, deep and endless, rose into his bones. He stopped, listening, and the sound became a voice, ancient, patient, and vast. It was Gaia, the earth herself, the breath of the world. "My child," the voice whispered, though it seemed to come from every direction at once, from the soil, the wind, the roots beneath him. "You have wandered through shadow and sea, through silence and sky. Now you stand upon me, who bore it all. Tell me, what have you found?" Lysander bowed his head. "I found that each god, each gift, holds not only power, but peace. Nyx gave me flame to guide in darkness. Hermes showed me that paths are choices, and choices are journeys. Apollo gave music. Aphrodite gave love. Selene gave rest. Even shadows gave me stillness. All of them feel like pieces of one great whole." The earth thrummed with approval. "Yes, for though mortals tell tales of gods as if they quarrel and divide, all are born of me, and all return to me. Night, song, love, silence, moonlight, they are threads. Together they weave the fabric of life." The final lesson. The meadow brightened softly, not with fire, but with the glow of countless tiny flowers opening all at once. Their petals shone like stars fallen upon the earth. Gaia's voice grew tender. "But tell me, dreamer, what do you seek? For you have gathered many gifts, yet gifts are nothing if not carried with purpose." Lysander looked to the sky, then to the earth beneath his feet. His voice was quiet but steady. "I seek peace," he said, "not for myself alone, but for all who wander. I wish for stories that soothe, for dreams that calm, for love that endures. If I carry these gifts, I want them to be a comfort, like moonlight upon tired eyes." The earth was silent for a long moment, as if listening deeply. Then Gaia's voice answered, low and warm as soil. "Then you will have it. Carry these gifts not as weapons, but as seeds. Wherever you go, plant silence in the loud places, light in the dark places, song in the weary places. That is how peace spreads, not by force, but by presence." Gaia's gift. The ground beneath Lysander shimmered. From the soil rose a single stone, smooth and green, glowing faintly like moss in moonlight. "This," Gaia said, "is the heart of the earth. It is small, yet within it rests the strength of mountains, the patience of rivers, the breath of forests. Keep it with the others, and you will never be without a home." Lysander took the stone reverently. As he held it, he felt the whole world steady beneath him. His feet were rooted, his spirit grounded. The meadow quieted, the flowers slowly closing, their glow sinking back into the soil. "Go now, dreamer," Gaia whispered. "Your journey is complete. Wake with peace and remember the voices of night." The thinning the air grew soft, heavy with drowsiness. The crescent shard dimmed gently, the lantern's fireflies folded their wings, and even the twilight flame rested, flickering slower and slower. Lysander lay down upon the grass. The earth beneath was warm, the sky above endless and kind. He closed his eyes, holding the stone of Gaia to his chest. And as he drifted into sleep, the voices of gods and shadows, of moon and sea, blended into one vast hush, the lullaby of the world itself. Epilogue: The Dreamer's Peace. In the villages, people dreamed of calm seas, of music in the night, of moonlight upon their brows. They did not know why their dreams were so gentle, only that peace seemed to settle upon them like a gift. And in those dreams, sometimes, they glimpsed a boy walking beneath the stars, carrying light, flame, song, and silence, guided always by the earth.